All right, welcome to Bet the Edge. I'm Jay Croucher here as always with Drew Dinsick. Hello, Drew. Today we're going to talk about 3 NFL games for Week 5. Giants at Dolphins, Titans at Colts, AFC South showdown, and then Eagles at Rams. But let's start with Big Blue, or Little Blue, as they are this year, at the Miami Dolphins. Dolphins 10.5-point favorites. The total is 49.5. Any prayers for the Giants in this one, Drew, after Daniel Jones was sacked 10 times on Monday night?
Yeah, do we have to talk about the Giants?
I'm from Evan Neal.
Man, dude, I'm still licking my wounds from a terrible bet on Giants against the Seahawks. Never really felt, there was a glimmer of a moment of, all right, things are clicking. They're moving the ball on this defense, and then 4th and 1 happens, and apparently not only was that an unpracticed play that they just kind of said, let's wing it, but got 2 of their interior offensive linemen injured, and then that was basically the game. I think the fact that the Giants offense was that helpless against the Seattle defense to this point in the season had virtually been no resistance is a bad sign. That if you can't get going, if you can't get right with extra time to prepare against a defense that can't stop anyone, then I do not know exactly what the future holds for you as far as competing in the NFL this year. And, it kind of takes us back an entire year and month, I think, to the eve of the 2022 campaign, when the GM and the coach and everybody around Big Blue was just kind of very much trying to suppress expectations and saying stuff like, we think this is like a 4-win team. Like, the talent disparity that we came into this process is a problem. And then they went on and had some, success early in the season that kind of made everybody sort of forget about the fact that there are still massive holes on this Giants team. And I look at the Giants overall as sort of a failed roster building experience, considering, what you have otherwise, in particular the defensive side of the ball. But let's focus on the offense first. You invest in Daniel Jones. You put an offensive line in front of them that's not showing any growth or ability to develop and give him, time that he needs to perform the operations of quarterback. And then you give him a set of wide receivers that are redundant and lack kind of game-breaking speed. You give him a tight end that has a history of injury and availability question marks. And this is kind of, it makes sense that we're seeing what we're seeing in terms of lack of output here. And then on the defensive side of the ball, you put a secondary that has, no skill position, no speed, no real ability to cover one-on-one. You put that in a Wink Martindale system where he likes to be aggressive and blitz. And then all of a sudden you don't have the players that can get home with the blitz. This is kind of what you would expect. A quick passing game, a rhythm passing game is going to annihilate this type of defense. And, both of the major problems, not having game-breaking wide receivers, not having cornerbacks who can cover on an island, those are huge questions for a matchup against the Dolphins, Jay. Huge. Like, those are kind of the only 2 things you need to be able to answer, yes, we can do this. The fact that the Giants couldn't generate a lick of a pass rush this last Monday, even though they were up against a second unit offensive line, also a question and a problem. I think one of the huge successes that the Bills and really Sean McDermott's defense had against the Dolphins was they were able to kind of slow down that passing attack. They made Tua hold on to the ball a little bit longer, and then let their pass rush kind of dictate to a degree. If Dolphins can go back to, the offense that we saw from them through the first 3 weeks, I don't know that there's a ceiling on how many points they can score against this Giants defense, because the Giants defense is just poorly conceived for what Wink Martindale wants to do. And if there's any kind of fight in these guys after what we just saw on Monday night, then I'll be surprised. I got to be honest.
Yeah, I think the only positive out of Monday night is that the defense wasn't terrible. Like, Geno Smith, the Seahawks didn't have a very good offensive game. Now, they didn't need to because of the field position that they were getting in the pick 6 and all of that. But it's not like the Seahawks were incredible on offense. And I do think that, potentially this Giants defensive line, which was the strength of the team last year, could give a kind of battered Miami Dolphins offensive line some issues with Dexter Lawrence and Leonard Williams and Kayvon Thibodeau. Like, that's not going to be easy. Everything else should be easy, though, for the Dolphins against this Giants team, where I think they've just reached the point now where the offensive line is just not viable to the point where the game just isn't it's not a real game. Like last night was an unreality. Getting sacked 10 times, and Daniel Jones at that point is, understandably hearing footsteps. And the interception, the second one, just felt like a cry for help. It felt like a cry for Andrew Thomas, because he clearly double clutched it, held it, didn't really want to let go of it. But it seemed like by that point he was seeing ghosts out there. So until they get Andrew Thomas back, until they get new offensive linemen, I don't really know what hope this team has. And the Dolphins are obviously not the team that you want to face in this scenario. I know the Dolphins defense has been underwhelming, but they do have a pass rush is the one thing that they do have between Chubb and Jalen Phillips and Wilkins. They'll get pressure on Daniel Jones. They got a better pass rush and a better defense, I think, than Seattle do. So that is trouble for the Giants. Is there any other way to bet this game? The Dolphins will very likely bounce back. Is there anything that you're targeting in terms of AFC East or any Dolphins futures or Mike McDaniel or anything of that vein?
Well, I guess it depends how you feel about Bills Jags, but I'm starting to warm up on Jags position there. But definitely the Dolphins being adjusted across 10 is noteworthy. This is now, the look ahead was 8.5, 9, and going across the key this high is definitely something you pay attention to. I'd have no stomach to back the Giants at this point. Part of it is, just in general, the weak effort at home on a primetime game. But even more of it is just in general, the matchup disaster that this particular game affords them. I would say that the Dolphins, your points about the Giants defense are fair. They did hold Geno Smith to a pretty pathetic EPA per play. And I think if they had better tackling on the Noah Fant catch and run, this game maybe was in the balance more than it really felt like. But all that said, the offensive line, even with a healthy Andrew Thomas, they now have injuries with the starting center, the starting guard. If they have to go to the second unit there, that's more of a problem. Daniel Jones is not throwing the ball with confidence right now. Daniel Jones is his ability to even get past one read and turn into kind of the best version of himself, which is bootlegging out of the pocket and kind of making plays out of structure. That's not even, he didn't even have the chance to get there in the second half, and really specifically in the fourth quarter. Now the Giants have been in a negative game state for the entire season so far. And so if you have a team in a negative game state, you dial up the pass rush. And that's kind of this entire story of what we've seen with the Giants so far. Negative game state, team dials up the pass rush, and the team falls apart. My guess is that, to a degree with Vic Fangio's style of defense, maybe that doesn't happen. If we get confirmation that Andrew Thomas is going to go, Saquon Barkley may play as well. I would expect that this over 49.5 takes money. So you basically are counting on the fact that the Dolphins are going to get theirs, score into the 30s, and that the Giants are going to at least give you some sort of, some sign of resistance or life. But playing in the 1 p.m. slot in Miami this early in the season on a short week, like you kind of can't even make it up. This is a pretty bad spot for New York. Not
ideal. Well, Giants fans will always have 2022 when you won 9 games and got blown out in the divisional round. Let's go to Titans-Colts. But firstly, a reminder, Drew, to get your popcorn ready for Sunday night this week. All the stars will be out in Northern California when Micah Parsons and the Cowboys clash with Christian McCaffrey and the 49ers. Coverage of this battle between two of the best teams in the NFC begins at 7 p.m. Eastern, only on NBC and Peacock. All right, Titans-Colts, which in recent years past has been a battle for the top of AFC South supremacy, not so much last year. Potentially not so much this year, though we will see. I think the Titans kind of resurrected their season by destroying Cincinnati felt like that was going to turn very south for Tennessee if they went to 1-3 and lost that game, but they didn't. They destroyed them. And now they are 1-point dogs at Indianapolis. The total is 42.5. What's your read on this game?
Yeah, I think the Colts are an overbet until future notice. And I know the Titans play slow. I know the Titans have a good defense, but 42.5 is awfully low for, two teams that offenses have been a lot more explosive than I think we expected coming into the season. I've changed my tune pretty aggressively now on what the Titans offense is capable of. I thought this unit was literally dead in the water considering how poor the offensive line play was expected to be coming into the season. And they respond, they hit the floor hard in week one with just a 5 field goal output against the Saints. And I thought, man, if that's the best you can do against the Saints D that has a weak pass rush, you're in deep trouble. But the Titans have continued to get better week in, week out on offense. And I think their ability to score into the 20s here is relatively high likelihood. I like that they're tacking away from Derrick Henry, who looks pretty washed right now. Ryan Tannehill is performing the quarterback position about as best as you could ask, considering how much time he has to operate. And then on the other side of the ball, Colts and Anthony Richardson are just he's a human highlight reel. He's capable of making really explosive plays. Kind of the final touches on making a bet to the over here are the Colts defense is just absolutely gutted. They have a number of really important players who will be missing this game and or limited in practice this week. Their number one pass rusher, Kwity Paye, is not expected to go. They're going to be missing their best cornerback in Flowers. Buckner is not playing healthy right now. And I think this Colts defense is in deep, deep, deep trouble for limiting a Titans from getting into the 20s. Ultimately, if I had to make a play on the side, I'm probably betting Tennessee. But I think both of these teams are going to be able to score pretty comfortably, and I think 42.5 is a gift to the over.
Yeah, I lean Titans in this game as well. I think Anthony Richardson just hasn't been very effective, certainly not as a passer, adding a lot of value on the ground naturally. But Anthony Richardson, by PFF grade, is the 4th worst quarterback in football this season. So I think there's a disparity between the perception of Richardson and how explosive and exciting he is as a runner. And also he does have highlight deep ball throws. But in reality, I mean, he's a guy who's not been particularly accurate at all. His completion percentage over expected is dire. And now he goes up against a very well-coached team. So I think that the Titans are very just an odd team. Can't really get a handle on them. I think it's important for them that Derrick Henry did look rejuvenated against the Bengals, and it was kind of old King Henry, just quietly. Even though he had such a poor start to the season, he is the 3rd-ranked running back by PFF. So I think that a lot of his struggles have been because of that offensive line. Now, that offensive line isn't really getting any better, but did show signs of competence, at least against Cincinnati. So, yeah, I think that the Titans are a surer bet of a team, and the Colts, I think their defense, which the success has been pretty solid so far. I mean, they're 11th in terms of EPA per play, the 11th best defense in the league. But in terms of success rate, they're 24th. So I think they're getting a little bit lucky on defense. To your point, they are very banged up as well. In the futures markets, do you think there are any plays around the Titans or the Colts potentially? The Titans are pick. Their win total is 8.5. They are minus 144 to miss the playoffs, which off the top of my head seems pretty good. And the Colts, their win total is 7.5. They're plus 250 to make the playoffs. Any interest in any of these markets?
I would have felt a lot better about the Colts if they could have pulled off the win against the Rams and gotten to 3-1. They kind of need those coin flips to go their way if they're going to win enough games to get into the playoff picture here. And I think as you look at the remaining schedule for both of these teams, it's pretty easy. Colts right now I have as the 3rd easiest schedule remaining. Tennessee is a bottom 10 easy schedule remaining. So they are going to continue to find their way into the win column and could steal a wild card. I think a lot of us, myself, top of the list, thought the AFC North was going to be a heck of a lot better than it is. I don't know that that's more than a one playoff team type of division, the way that these teams are playing right now. And the AFC East looks like a 2 playoff team division, no more. And AFC West has some pretty bad defenses. So I would definitely say that there is scope for more than one AFC South team to steal a playoff win or a playoff spot, which is kind of wild because we thought that AFC playoffs was going to be just an absolute, just a who's who of incredibly good teams, even in the wild card round. And now I am now considering, well, actually, there might be some bad teams that sneak their way in from this division because of this way that the schedules are imbalanced here. So I don't have a strong read on the Colts getting right defensively to the tune of getting their, forcing their noses in, although their schedule down the home stretch is so easy. I think we've already kind of talked about the best upside Colts position is probably Steichen Coach of the Year, and the bet to that time to make that bet is probably around Halloweenish. But the Titans, continuing to surprise to the good, stacking wins and threatening to be the second best team in this division it's there. Tannehill's playing that well. And I think that ultimately 10 wins is probably going to be enough to put you in the conversation. So, man, I can't believe I'm here at all. I thought the Titans were going to be miserable this year.
I still don't think they're particularly good. I think this team's going to finish 8-9, but yeah, they certainly could be in the playoff mix after that win last week. All right, before we get to Eagles-Rams, a reminder that Bet the Edge isn't the only show every day. Weekday during the NFL season, you can also check out the Fantasy Football Happy Hour with Matthew Berry, Connor Rogers, and myself. It airs live on Peacock at noon Eastern, re-airs at 4 p.m. and is available on our NFL on NBC Sports YouTube channel, as well as wherever you listen to your podcasts. Last week, we had Connor Rogers give out his best bet, which was in the futures market, which was Devin Witherspoon at 20-1 to win Defensive Rookie of the Year. And he's now plus 150, and I think rightfully right there at the top of the board after he had what I would call a 100th percentile game against the New York Giants. Literally 100th percentile, pick six, multiple sacks from cornerback. Completely ridiculous. And I'd have him neck and neck with Jalen Carter now. Jalen Carter plays for the Philadelphia Eagles, and they're 4.5-point favorites at SoFi against the plucky Rams. The total a monstrous 50.5. And look, I think we kind of know what the Rams are, which is a very solid offense, a slightly below average but competent defense. I think the more interesting side of this game is the Eagles, who right now have the 10th best offense by EPA per play, the 19th best defense, and they haven't really played much yet either. They've played the Patriots, the Vikings, the Bucks, and the Commanders, which is not a murderer's row, and yet they haven't been super impressive. They really should have lost that game against Washington, had multiple times where they could have lost it, and if Riverboat Ron had found the riverboat in the canal, then they potentially would have just lost right there. So what do you make of the Eagles and any bets on this game?
Yeah, it's fascinating conversation because 4-0 is deceptive. They should probably be around 2-2. Realistically, should have lost week 1 to the Patriots if they didn't get out to a 7, whatever, the Patriots spotted them 17 points with some fluky turnovers early. And then they basically had chances to win towards the end of that game that didn't come to fruition. Similarly, the Commanders absolutely should have beat the Eagles. And, that goes without saying that the Eagles did some pretty dumb stuff to give the Commanders back into that game at the very end, particularly scoring the touchdown and then committing the penalty was pretty, mind-meltingly stupid by the Eagles. But all that said, they're playing less than we know they're capable of, and they're winning games. And I think that reality is what's more important to look at rather than saying, well, they're 4-0, but they're not, blah, blah, blah. The fact of the matter is we know the Eagles have a higher ceiling, a higher level of play than they've reached this season. And that should be somewhat scary to the other teams in the NFC because, if they finally do hit their gear towards the end of the season instead of at the beginning, then you're talking about an absolute disastrous matchup for any other team in the playoff picture. Because the fact of the matter is the Eagles are healthy. They haven't really lost anyone. The offensive line is as good as expected. The wide receivers had a slow start to the season, but they're getting more, more attention, more play. DeAndre Swift was a surprisingly solid addition to this offense, and Jalen Hurts, for what it's worth, just he may not have started the season healthy, but will ultimately get there, and I think we'll ultimately see higher quality of play from him as we get deeper into the season. So I think the Eagles are a little bit of a sleeping giant because of a lot of the stuff that you said, which is all true. The Eagles defense, I have less confidence in, although the defensive line can be game changing in terms of, just disruption. We saw that as sort of the distinguishing characteristic, in my opinion, on the Monday Night Football game against Tampa Bay. And I would expect that that is the key factor in this game, as you have a Rams team that is dealing with some injuries to their offensive line, and Stafford, who took a pretty serious hip injury in that Colts game and just did not look especially right after. I know that he gutted through it, played through it, made the game-winning drive look easy, but that was against a beleaguered Colts defense, not this Eagles defense that has multiple ways to generate pressure. I think if the Eagles are getting pressure against the Rams and Stafford in this contest, this is one-way traffic because I think the Eagles offense matches up beautifully against the Rams defense here. Eagles offense, in my opinion, should get into the 30s, and I think their defense can keep the Rams into the teens. So we're probably going to talk about this game again later this week, Jay, but I like the Eagles laying the points.
Yeah, I'd be more confident in the Rams if, like you said, Stafford was at full health, but he's not. I think the problem with the Eagles twofold. One, secondary just hasn't been great. Nevontae Maddox going down probably for the season, I would guess, hasn't helped there. Darius Slay hasn't been the same guy. Bradbury's been fine, but Hassan Reddick hasn't been the same guy off the edge either. And then on offense, I mean, it's just all really about Jalen Hurts. The offensive line is as good as ever. A.J. Brown bounced back as you would expect that he would have and was dominant against Washington. But Hurts is more like 2021 Hurts than 2022, MVP favorite in week 13, Jalen Hurts. And that's really been the difference on offense. Now, how much of that is his shoulder and being injured, and how much of that is not having Shane Steichen there anymore? I would think that it's probably just a combination of everything, but I would project that, he's probably been the 16th best quarterback in the league so far. And I would probably project that he's going to be a top 10 quarterback going forward, as presumably he gets healthier and they just get more adjusted to the offense. The issue is that there is a reckoning coming for the Eagles with their schedule.
Yeah.
Where, yes, at Rams, 4.5-point favorites, then at Jets, they'll be favored for that game as well. But then after that, Miami, Sunday Night Football on NBC, at Washington, who they very nearly lost to at home, and then Dallas at KC, Buffalo, San Francisco, at Dallas, at Seattle. That's brutal. That is as hard of a 2 months as any team can possibly have, basically. All of those games are going to be tough. They're going to be dogs in multiple games there, and then there's going to be pick in other games. So that is the 2 month stretch that will decide the Eagles season. It's important that they bank these 4 wins because now they're pretty well perched in the division, where they're probably favorite if they split against Dallas, because Dallas coughed up that game to Arizona. So I think the Eagles are okay placed at the moment. But yes, they don't look amazing in terms of just how they're playing, but there is reason to think that they can get better, and they're going to need to. On the Rams, what do you think the upside is for the Rams? Do you have any interest in Sean McVay? Is 22-1 to win Coach of the Year. Do you think there's any chance this team goes 12-5 and competes with San Francisco for the division?
Man, I don't think 12-5 competes with San Francisco for the division, number one.
Wow.
San Francisco looks like 13-3 is kind of their median expectation right now. But 12-5 is possible for the Rams team, but it entirely depends on Stafford's health more than anything McVay can do, I think. The Rams are thin. The Rams are starting to see some injuries here and there. The defensive side of the ball, if they start accruing injuries there and they have to dip into any deeper into the well to backfill, I think they're going to start getting to some shootouts. I think the Rams are a team that up against anyone but the elite on defense, any team other than the likes of the Niners, the Eagles, the Cowboys, they're going to score because Stafford is playing a at a very, very high level right now. Stafford has always been a guy that handles the blitz very well, and really is only a guy that you worry about if he's up against a defense that's generating pressure with their front four. Now, I expect that this weekend, but there's a lot of games on the schedule where the Rams aren't going to be facing that type of pressure. And so if Stafford can get over the hip injury and really avoid anything happening to that elbow, they're going to win a bunch of games. They have some easy games on their schedule. Their schedule is much easier than the likes of Dallas and Philly, which means getting into a wild card spot for the NFC is very, very much, something they should be thinking about. I am projecting them 44% chance right now to make the playoffs, which feels low. I guess some of that is just because they're behind Seattle in wins, although they do have the head-to-head win against Seattle, and they match up well against Seattle, by the way. So I don't really think that a playoff spot is out of the question at all for these guys. 12 wins is a lot. Let me see if I can. Yeah, I think 12 is they're going to need a little bit of luck, and they're going to need to stay super healthy. Their schedule is very favorable, though.
Yeah. I just think it's like any team that isn't San Francisco probably needs a bit of luck to get to 12. But, I mean, I think the thing is with McVay, which I think is probably the most interesting way to bet this team because he is so beloved by the media and they had such low expectations coming into the season, and they could be the team that exceeds their win total by the most, which is usually a pretty good starting point for Coach of the Year. But as I was discussing this with a friend earlier in the season and raising McVay as a Coach of the Year candidate, he pointed out to me that McVay won the Super Bowl like 20 months ago. And so I think that kind of dampens the case when you're comparing him to other candidates who could be the potential story of the year, like Mike McDaniel or Dan Campbell as a 1 seed, or D'Amico Ryans winning 11 games, or the Bucs getting a 2 seed. Like, all these things to me are just more shocking and startling that they're actually more likely to win Coach of the Year. Sean McVay going 11-6 and getting a wild card, that feels to me like a case that finishes third or something. I don't think that's necessarily a winning Coach of the Year case, but if they do start to pull out some wins, if they beat the Niners, then all of a sudden it might get a bit more interesting. But I don't think they probably have the upside or enough of a narrative push quite. But it is one to monitor. All right. Anything else on this one, Drew?
I guess I'll just mention they don't play the Niners again until week 18. And at
well,
that
probably
point,
good for them.
It's probably good for them. Yeah,
may not have anything at stake.
Yeah, and they three of their 4 games they've played so far this season, road games. So they've gotten through a pretty tough portion of their schedule, and I think they've done it with the passing grade. So if you do again, like I love the Eagles this week, like full on love, like
full love.
Full love for the Eagles this week, and really and truly, like I'm kind of done fading the Rams after this for a while. At the Cowboys looks like a decent spot to bet against them, and then that's basically it. Like, I think other than that, they match up really well against a lot of the teams on their schedule. So I might kind of re-kick the tires on some Rams upside bets after this week's over.
Okay. Full love for the Philadelphia Eagles. No half love or 3/7 love on.
No, it's a week of brotherly love, Jay.
Yes, in the city of. All right, we're done. Don't forget to check out NBCSports.com for more information to help you with your wagers. Thanks everyone watching on the NBC Sports YouTube channel. Please rate and subscribe if you're listening in podcast form. And a reminder to find all your favorite NBC Sports shows on Amazon Music. Just head to amazon.com/NBC Sports. From Jay Croucher and Drew Dinsick, we'll see you soon.